Good morning. We're going to start the next step of assembling the D28 kit. The next step being gluing up the rim. The rim consists of the two sides glued together, tied together with the tail block and the neck block, which goes up here on this end. That's where the neck mounts to the body using this dovetail joint there. And then the tail block, primary purpose of that is to hold the tail end of the guitar together and a place for the end pin to go in for your guitar strap. So, I want to talk a little bit about the sides. A kit will come with the sides already bent in the shape, as you can see here, and that will vary depending on what style guitar you're building. Already tapered or profiled and cut to length. Now when I say tapered for the profile, if you'll look over here, this is a set of sides before they've been bent. Now on a regular guitar, or on any guitar, this end is the neck end. It's going to be narrower here than it is down here on the tail end. Now as you can see, this wood was like this before it was cut, and then it's opened up and it's book matched. So properly done set of sides. When you put the ends together, you'll see the grain meet up exactly because it's mirror image. So, the reason that it's tapered is, you'll notice here, you can see it's not an exact taper from one end to the other. It goes a little wider and goes down, and then all of a sudden it takes a dip there towards the neck. And the reason for that is the back side of the guitar is actually domed. And in the case of Martin style guitars, the backs are a 15 to 16 foot radius, which means that if you had a ball 32 feet in diameter and you cut a guitar shape cut out of that ball, that's how the back of a Martin guitar would be shaped. So when you make the shape of the guitar, it creates a complex curve there. Now, this is pretty close to what it's going to end up being, but we will show what we do to make the fit exact for that radius. As you can see here, we have a guitar mold. This is the first special tool that you need to buy to build a guitar. You can build without this. There are ways around it, and personally I don't think they're very good. Blues Creek Guitars makes these molds, already made, sell them for $100. As a matter of fact, these are the molds that if you go to the Martin website, the CF Martin website, and look in their 1833 shop, Blues Creek Guitars makes the molds for Martin to resell through their 1833 shop. So if you want the exact shape of a modern Martin dreadnought guitar or triple O or whatever you're going to build, these molds will give you that exact shape. And when I say they're cut to length, the sides are cut to length, the way you check that is you put the sides in the mold. Open up the clamp a little bit. You can just one end is enough. Put the, you always work this with the top side down because the top side is straight. If you look here on our unbent side, you see one side is perfectly straight. That's the top side. That's what we reference from until we actually start putting the guitar together. So you put the top side down so it's flat, and it's easy to tell because if you put it the other way, you'll see it won't lay flat. There's a taper there and it wobbles around. on the flat side, you can get it to sit flat against a flat surface. So we put it in there. You put each end together. Be careful forcing that. You don't want to split the wood. And when each end's together, you clamp it shut, and it should perfectly conform to the shape of the mold. We'll be using this later for building the guitar. Some folks glue the end block and the neck block in the mold. I've found that that's very awkward and unnecessary. So the first use for the mold is to make sure your sides are bent correctly and the length is correct. And the way you would correct that is, if there is an overlap, let's say you clamp it, the best you can do is get it to overlap like that far. Well, you would mark your sides using the joint in the mold as your center line, make a mark, and then cut that end exactly square. Mark it with a good square, and cut that square to the top side, because like I said, that's your straight line is the top, and everything is referenced from that to begin with. So since that is all square, we've checked this, these sides are correct. We can take it out of the mold now. Come over here to our flat surface, and I showed these blocks on a video a couple of weeks ago. You don't have to have this. This just makes it easier than wrestling it around separately. But if you don't have this setup jigs like I have here, you can just put your sides on a flat surface using wax paper, just plain old cut right wax paper. Put that between whatever surface you're using and where the glue is, and that way you don't have to be embarrassed later on by having to cut your wood pieces from the top. So anyway, this is your neck joint. It would go here. This is the top surface for your neck joint. You can tell you want the wide part of the dovetail towards the top. We're actually building this upside down. But you would put that there, mark a center line on that, make sure it's centered, and then just clamp that up. Now, these blocks on my workbench here are just for convenience. It makes it a lot easier to do this. If you're only going to do the one guitar, you know, it's not worth doing this, but since I build quite a few guitars, it makes this chore a lot easier. So we put our wax paper in there, kind of get it in place, and we don't worry about the exact shape the guitar is taking right now, because when we start building, we're going to put it back in the mold to get the shape defined. As a matter of fact, this is the last step that we do before we actually put it in the mold. So let's go ahead. Let me find a little something here and a pencil. Sorry, I didn't have this ahead of time. We want to make a center line on this. So this is 2 3/4, so 1 3/8 would be the center, which is right here, because we want it nice and centered on this seam here between the two halves. You know, it's not rocket science, but you know, you want it fairly close. And this is the neck block is 3 1/8, so 1 1/2 plus a 16. So that'd be about the center right there. So now, all right, and we want to have everything ready before we start gluing. I like using clamping cauls, because then that spreads out the clamping force, so you can do everything then with one clamp. Put that in there, clamp that down, that mashes the whole thing against the side there. Same down here. Got a clamping ball there. That'll mash that in down. So, like I say, we'll put it back together here. Make sure it's fairly centered on our block there, and we take our glue. Now this is fish glue that I'm using, which is it's an animal protein glue, similar to the glue that Martin used for years and years up until the 60s. They used hot hide glue, and it's called hot hide glue because you have to warm it up to 120 degrees to use it. If you don't warm it up, it won't make a good joint. Now the interesting thing is about hot hide glue, and this is very similar, but it's actually a room temperature glue. Hot hide glue is nothing but primarily boiled animal hooves, which there is another product right on your grocery shelves that is the identical product, and when you find out about it, it's going to be a little gross, but unflavored Knox gelatin is basically hot hide glue. So if you make your own Jello or use that for cooking, that's basically the same thing as hot hide glue. You can actually glue a guitar together using unflavored Knox gelatin if you want to. You just have to get it consistent for the get your viscosity consistent so that it sets up correctly, and it makes a decent glue. If you're rebuilding a violin or something, you need to patch up something, unflavored Knox gelatin. Alright, now I'm clamping down on the top here. I want this stabilized, so when I clamp on this, then it's not going to go anywhere. So we put our clamping caul here, put our clamp down here, get everything all lined up, and we start clamping down. Now, one of the things you want to make sure is before you put a lot of force on it, you want to make sure those ends are butted together. And reminder again, make sure that top surface is down, because that keeps everything squared up before we put it in the mold to actually do the. And I want to make sure I got my center line there. Yeah. And that's pretty much it for gluing the rim. Now since one of the things you want to do if you're using the animal protein glue, like hot hide glue or fish glue in this case, and if I can find my lid here, it needs a little more dry time, setup time than regular carpenter glue. So I'm going to let this sit. This is Sunday afternoon, so I'm just going to leave it clamped up until I get back home next weekend from my business trip. But like I say, this over here, this is one of 2 or 3 special tools that I feel is a minimum that you need to buy to actually build a guitar. This and the other thing we'll be coming to in our next video will be the only 2 things. It's a couple $100 worth of stuff, so you got to figure on spending a little bit extra money beyond your normal carpentry and woodworking tools. It's not a lot. There's lots of things you can buy, but these are the 2 minimum things to build a quality instrument. So that's it for today. Have a good weekend.